and consulting. And I am a PCC credentialed coach, as well as a credentialed integrative Enneagram practitioner with additional training in Enneagrams for teams. And I've spent about 30 years in the social and philanthropic sectors, supporting individuals and organizations committed to making a world a better place through organizational transformation and leadership. And I use the Enneagram in supporting leaders and teams to recognize their greatest gifts and how to support each other to achieve the impact and success they aspire. Jason, would you like to introduce yourself? And folks, you please feel free to put in the chat your name and where you are connecting from today.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see some familiar faces and a bunch of new faces. We have a few people continuing to trickle in. My name is Jason Morris. I'm based here in San Francisco, California. I'm an executive coach and a leadership facilitator, and I work with leaders and rising talent in the corporate sector, nonprofit, and philanthropic sectors all around the world. And I've trained in the Enneagram with two globally renowned schools. One is Integrative Enneagram Solutions, and one is Chestnut Pace Enneagram Academy. And I fell in love with the Enneagram about 5 years ago. And I now use it with the vast majority of my coaching clients as a way to deepen self-awareness and to support them in becoming more effective leaders. And I facilitate team workshops, including one that's going on right now for about 100 leaders across a dozen organizations in East Africa. So it's a tool that we can use cross-culturally very effectively. And I also occasionally use it to support couples in deepening their connection.
All right. With that, let me just share. We're going to do a poll just to get a better understanding of what level of experience folks have with the Enneagram. So Jason's going to launch the poll, and please feel free to click whatever makes sense to you. All right, we've got a couple folks that have taken the test. We've got 3 folks who are brand new. 3 folks who've taken the test. Some folks that have read some things about it. Fantastic. Well, this will be a quick flyby, I would say. In 45 minutes, you're not going to learn a lot, but you'll learn a little bit and maybe heighten your curiosity too. So we are thrilled to get started with a little bit more on the Enneagram. So our desired outcomes for today, we'll do a brief exploration into the world of the Enneagram, including very high level exploration into what your possible type might be. And we'll have some time to talk a little bit about where you can take that Enneagram exploration further as we share a little bit about the Enneagram Discovery Package that we're also offering. So we're going to start with Jason giving us a quick overview about how the Enneagram can support individuals and teams.
So I want to start by talking about our lens of perception, how we each see the world through different color glasses. And we're going to explore this in more detail in our upcoming workshops. But for now, it's sufficient to say that neuroscience has demonstrated that our brains are wired differently. So what we see and what we don't see can vary widely, and that's normal. But unfortunately, 2 things happen then. The first is that we are often unaware of our lens just because it's been with us for our whole lives. So we're not aware of our core motivations or the fears that lie underneath them. And left unexamined, these motivations and fears often end up controlling us. But then to make matters worse, we observe other people and their behavior and their personality through our own lens. And then we assume or assign the motivations and the meanings to that. And then that's what we react to. And that's what leads to all kinds of dysfunction and conflict, both in the working world and in our personal settings. So the Enneagram helps us kind of see things at 3 different levels. The first level is ourself. starting to learn more about the strengths that we often take for granted, the challenges we have that we keep bumping into, the blind spots that we're not even aware of. And then we can start to explore how to grow. And the Enneagram isn't just a static model, it's a very dynamic model. So it helps us understand how we can balance ourselves. The second level that we can start to look at is the interpersonal. Learning about other types and what makes them tick helps us understand how to better communicate with people, what causes conflict and how we can navigate it together, how we can give and receive feedback. And there's all kinds of things that we can explore interpersonally through the lens of the Enneagram framework. And then lastly, the systemic or the team. So putting the 4 band members together creates something that's greater than the sum of its parts. And the Beatles is a wonderful example of that. And the Enneagram can help us start to understand a little bit more of what's the type of music that we create. Again, both the strengths and what are the gaps. And then when we understand that, we can actually work with leaders and with teams to figure out how to address some of the gaps within a team in ways that can bring more team cohesion and more effectiveness. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Mary, to talk a little bit about what this Enneagram is.
Thank you, Jason. Yes, thanks so much for sharing the how the Enneagram can support individuals and teams. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the what, this interesting diagram and then elements of it. So the exact origin of the Enneagram is unknown. However, there's been evidence of the shape originating several thousand years ago. The word originates from Greek. Ennea is 9, and gram is structure or shape. So it's just describing the shape. However, over the last 75 years, it's been developed as a personality type tool, integrating with modern psychology. And each point is one of 9 basic styles of people that describes why we behave the way we do and what that core motivation is below that behavior. And each type's differentiated in terms of the focus of attention. It shows what they think about or what each type thinks about and doesn't think about, what emotions they tend to feel or not feel, and what actions they often take or rarely take. You know, we all have all 9 types within us. However, we do have one dominant type. And our core type or our core way of seeing the world doesn't change. So if you want to move on to the next slide. So ideally, we learn to express the qualities of each type in healthier ways over time. The more self-awareness we have, the more we are able to move in that direction. However, when we're stressed or we've had some traumatic life events, we can slide more into the unhealthy section because we're really going to our core motivations and fears and protecting those. We also have 3 biological instincts that are drivers, and they're drivers in all humans as well as in animals. And these 3 instincts help us understand the perspective within each of our core motivations. So self-preservation instinct is focusing, a person is focusing on security and safety, having enough resources, and maintaining your basic well-being. The social instinct focuses on our attention and belonging and relationship and social groups. And then the one-to-one instinct focuses on attention around specific issues or qualities and status of relationships, and really looking at those one-to-one type of relationships. And those various instincts also are an overlay on each particular type. So we each have this dominant type, and then we tend to rely on one of these instincts, and the other instincts are underdeveloped or dormant. So those instincts are called the subtype. So moving on to the visual representation of the lines and the wings. You'll see these lines and also these wings. The wings are those types that are on each side of the core type, they're like neighbors influencing the core type, but they don't change it. So if you think of your core type like a bowl of ice cream, the wings are like the toppings added, the whipped cream, the chocolate sauce. They add flavor, but they don't change your core motivations. They can widen your perspective and your behavior repertoire. Now the arrow lines point to alternative perspectives that can balance the core type's typical point of view and offer that opportunity for developing and integrating beyond just the core type behaviors. So with that, we're going to jump into taking a little micro test. I hope this has intrigued you, or you've learned a little bit and you're interested in what might be your micro test. There are a lot of different ways for people to discover their Enneagram type. There are assessment tools. There are narrative conversations. They're using flip cards. So there's many different ways to confirm what your core type may be. Jason and I most often use the IEQ9 assessment from Integrative Enneagram Solutions. It was developed in South Africa. You can take it in 15 different languages, and it's used by organizations and companies around the world. The large report, has roughly 95% reliability. We also work with the Chestnut Pays Enneagram Academy, and you'll see that logo on your screen. And this is also another world-renowned expert on the Enneagram. And they have this really simple test that we're going to do, this micro test, which is about 70 or 75% accurate. So they also have a longer assessment, which has the same type of reliability as the IEQ9. So we want to make this interactive. We're going to put the link in the chat. You'll have a few minutes to read through. There's 2 questions, and you'll select what you feel is most resonant to how you see yourself. And then you'll get a paragraph that comes up on your screen, and you can read through that, and then we'll have some time to talk about it. So Jason, can you put that, there it is, in the chat. So we'll give you a few minutes right now to fill that out.
And if you read the description and it's not quite landing, just go back and retake it. The part of the fun of the micro test is it's actually a really simple test with a high degree of accuracy. But if in doubt, take it, hold both types. We're going to come back and actually review all 9 types to give you a little bit more of a flavor. And so sometimes there's a little bit of a discovery, a little bit of a journey that we go on to land in our type. Let me thank you for getting that. What we're going to do now.
Can I just have one question? I didn't get my type. Am I supposed to get a type?
Yeah, you should have, after you hit submit, it should give you a paragraph of
Description.
You might have to accept
and then
the cookies at the bottom of the screen. Once I did that, I got my type.
there
you go.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
So Leonora, did that work for you?
It didn't. What it's saying to me is, we would like to send you the ultimate guide of your most likely Enneagram type. And I filled it all out, and I agree to share this information, and I submitted, and nothing's happening.
So you'll get an email then with a kind of a 5-page report or so. But before that, it should have shared a paragraph of your type, like the page before that. Not sure.
Okay.
Maybe it was an issue with the cookies.
I just clicked the left arrow, the back arrow, and then forward again, and it came up.
Got it.
So you can give that a shot.
Yeah. So you'll have something in your inbox that you can go in deeper. For now, what I would say is we're going to do a quick kind of 1 minute per type whip around. And don't even worry about taking notes. Just listen to the type and the energy behind it, particularly around the motivation and the fear, and see if it resonates for you. See if your body responds to it. We have all 9 types within us. But as Mary was saying, we have one core type, and often there's kind of the hairs on the back of your neck might stand up a little bit. There might be a little bit of a sinking feeling sometimes when we get into some of that energy. And just note with if there are one or two types that really land for you. And this is also a place that as we deepen in the Enneagram, we can start to see how it reminds us of a particular colleague or a friend or a family member. We don't type other people because it is really about that inner core motivation and core fear, but we can bring curiosity. And with that curiosity, we can start to expand our understanding of what it might be like to see the world through different color glasses. So I'll start with type 1. And type 1s are sometimes called the reformer. Other schools call them the perfectionist. They're very conscientious types. They're reliable and responsible and stick to their word and see things through to the end. Very principled, wanting to lead by example, valuing their integrity and standing for what's right and good. And often very perfectionistic, either with themselves or with others, with a inner critic. We all have inner critics, but ones have the strongest inner critic. And that inner critic can be turned inwards with this really rigid perfectionistic outlook, or it can be turned outwards, trying to perfect others or even perfect the world. And ones have this key core motivation of needing to do the right thing. It's tied to their value of being a good person. And as a result, there's a lot of emphasis on self-control and integrity and quality. And there is that striving for perfection and appreciating high standards. And this fear of making mistakes, it kind of goes to this core fear of being wrong or defective in some way. And that's very different than the type 2, which is known as the helper, sometimes called the considerate helper. They are by nature very warm and demonstrative in their affection. It's really easy for them to connect with others. And there is an inherent giving nature. They want, type 2s have this superpower of anticipating the needs of others and giving without asking. They are often the type that remember your birthday, they remember your dog's birthday. They just naturally are very people-centered and aspire to be very friendly and very pleasing. And they put their own needs and feelings on the back burner in order to support others. And so they can be very adept at complimenting and making people feel special and boosting their confidence because their key motivation is all around being helpful and dependable. They need to feel liked and appreciated because there's the core fear underneath all of that of being unwanted or unloved. And 3s have a similar core fear, this feeling of fear of being worthless or fear of being unloved, but how they go about it and what the core motivation is very different. So the core motivation of the type 3, which is the achiever, is about achieving goals, is about presenting an image of success and being productive. And so 3s then show up in the world as very ambitious, striving to be the best in whatever they do. And this strong belief in their ability to succeed. And they're efficient and resourceful and very focused and driven to achieve. For 3s, we often talk about the world feels like if they stop or slow down, it feels like dying. So they're very results oriented, very driven, can be very competitive. And I'll do one more and turn it over to Mary. But 4s are known as the individualist or the intense creative. They have a very deep attunement to their emotions and they seek to understand feelings in depth. So they're often very creative and expressive and can feel emotions really intensely. And they have a courage about them that they don't shy away from suffering and from painful emotions. So we see a lot of artists, a lot of creative types that end up in being type 4s because they're motivated to be authentic and to really express their individuality, their unique feelings, their self-expression. And they have a core fear of just being ordinary in the world.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, folks, I'm going to take us around the rest of the circle from 5 to 9 core types. So the 5 style leader is often called the investigator or the observer. And you may see characteristics of being private or quite perceptive or, thoughtful or curious. And they may be a little detached because they're actually thinking more than they are connecting with others. Really see themselves as being autonomous and self-sufficient. And those characteristics are driven by their need to pursue knowledge and make sure that they have enough resources to maintain themselves. And that their core fear is really they don't want to look foolish. So they want to have all of the information that's needed to feel like they're prepared to engage with the world. We move on to the type 6, the loyalist, or sometimes called a loyal skeptic. The type 6s are very loyal, the most loyal of all of the Enneagram types, perhaps why they're called the loyalist. They're very trustworthy. They will stick to decisions and commitments, and they really respect authority. If someone says this is the way it should go, they follow that lead. They're quite prepared, and they're also a little bit hyper alert. They're always wanting to be prepared for the what ifs. They like to collaborate as well, and they're very good in team environments. And these motivations come from the desire to feel safe and stable, avoiding any threats or risks. So that's the contingency planning that happens that often are thinking about. And that's because the core fears, they don't want to feel unprepared. Now moving on to the type 7, they're often called the enthusiast or the enthusiast visionary or epicure. They like to experience, very optimistic. There are people that say yes all the time. Spontaneous, quick thinkers, really fun-loving, future-oriented, always want to be in motion and experiencing things. And they're really driven by experiencing life experiences, adventures, new pleasures. The feeling bored is uncomfortable for them, and wanting to be free and not tied down is also a motivator. They don't want to feel limited or restricted. That makes them feel very uncomfortable. And if we move to the type 8s, they're often called a challenger or an active controller. Sometimes is what they're defined, the tag in the IEQ-9 assessment survey. But 8s are identifying characteristics are being assertive and confident and direct, very comfortable saying what they need, and decisive, quite easy to make decisions. They really trust their gut, quick to respond, and easy to move forward and be independent. Their core motivations are really to feel strong and in control, and the fear around being vulnerable is what drives them to be direct and focused and confident. Being independent is important as well, and they really want to make things happen. They're the go-to, get it done kind of folks. And we'll move on to the last type description for the type 9s, which are known perhaps as peacemakers or harmonizers. They are the folks that really like to get along. They're the people that are open, easygoing, don't make waves. They listen to lots of different perspectives, try to find common ground. They are calm and accommodating and supportive of others. And they're really motivated by having harmony and peace. They really are uncomfortable with conflict. Therefore, their core fear of being in conflict or chaos is what drives them to be easygoing and, wanting to just sort of flow with what's happening in whatever situation. They like comfort and routines. So with that quick tour, we're just going to open it up for any questions or thoughts, reflections.
And just a real quick apology for the troubleshooting with the test. I think we might have flooded it, even though we had 10 people, but I think we all hit the same test at the same time. It should be pretty straightforward. It should be 2 questions, and you get your brief paragraph before you fill anything out. So you might try it again in a little bit, but sorry for that snafu. I've never seen that.
Yeah. Michelle.
And I will let them know that we broke their test.
Sorry for any background noise. I just am wondering, as practitioners of this, when you meet somebody and you interact with them for a little while, can you sort of pick out what their Enneagram might be?
That's a good question. It's something that, so I've done several hundred assessments of people at this point, and I have a sneaking suspicion at times, but it's really important to not act on that, to hold it with curiosity, because it really, when we look and when we go into the longer workshops, we'll talk about the difference between behavior and motivation. And so the danger is trying to assign a type based on behavior, because often we'll see a behavior and there can be 4 or 5 different motivations that underlie it. That said, after talking to people for a little while and maybe asking a couple of targeted questions, it can start to get us a curiosity, and I'll just hold that. And so as a coach, it's really, really powerful, because we can then coach to that, and then see if it ends up our hypothesis holds true. The other piece I'll say is we didn't get into it here, but when we go into more deep assessment, as Mary mentioned, there's subtypes. So each core type has 3 subtypes, which are like different flavors of that type, and they're nuanced. And so when you understand that the actual, not just the 9 types, but the 27 subtypes, we'll see slight variations of people, and that can really help in understanding how people move through the world and what drives them.
Lenora.
I didn't get my type, but that's all right. This still worked to stimulate a lot of thought. So one thing I observed, I have an observation and a question. One thing I observed is when you were reading the descriptions, there were elements of 3 or 4 that I felt were so me, but then one part might sound not like me. So I was just noticing what you were saying before is like we all have many of the parts in us. My question to you is, when you use this as coaching and people have done the full assessment so they know their core fears, etc., is that something you lean in on? Meaning, do you explore how stressors or conflicts are triggering the core fears? Is that one way that you might use these profiles?
Great question, Leonora. Yes. I think what I have found in using the Enneagram tool with coaching clients is, for the most part, when people read through their results, there are lots of pieces that resonate for them and recognize, yes, that's something that I know about myself. And then there's other aspects that they feel like are shadows that, oh, that makes sense about how I sometimes respond in certain situations. And so it becomes a roadmap to identify when folks are triggered, when folks are feeling activated or stressed, how they might respond, and be able to interrupt those patterns, because they now have more resources and understanding how they might approach it differently.
And the thing that I would add is, one of the things that I love about the tool is we look at everything from a lens of compassion. So again, we get into this when we have a little bit more time, but all of the challenges come from our strengths being overdone and being out of balance. And so when we bring the Enneagram framework, we don't change our type. So sometimes people will look back and they can see their childhood, they can see their adolescence and their early 20s showing up in their type when they've overdone a certain strength and has led to challenges. But when we understand that, then we can start to work with people about how do we bring more balance. We can use an opposite energy, opposite strategy for people to feel a little bit more centered and to have other tools in their toolkit rather than their primary strategy for dealing with things. And that allows people, and again, there's a whole neuroscience behind it, but it allows people to move from a place of unconscious reactivity into a more conscious place where they have choice, and they can say more, do I want to use this tool? Do I want to lean into this energy? And over time, as we do that, that really helps us kind of polish the rough edges of our personality construct.
Thanks, Jason. You want to move forward? We just have a few minutes left, folks, with
Oh, wow. Look at the time.
The places we may go.
Yeah. If you have other questions, drop them in the chat. We'll also share our email addresses at the end. Definitely want you to have a chance to voice those. So this is just the beginning. This is just a taste of the Enneagram. And the content is vast and diverse. So the questions that you ask, there's actually a lot of layers to how we could approach them. When we work with individuals and teams, we dive much deeper into it with a more powerful assessment tool that takes about half an hour to go through, and it has an algorithm that helps increase the accuracy. And then either school that we've used usually provides a 20 to 30 page report. So something really meaty for us to understand ourselves. And then we delve deeper into the types, and we look at the subtypes. We can cover topics like how do you stand in your strengths with more confidence, how you understand the roots of your challenges, what are some of the blind spots that you are starting to see or haven't seen yet. What are the ways that types get fixated in certain types of thoughts, certain emotions, and certain actions? And what are some of the thoughts, emotions, or actions they don't have as much access to? And then what are some ways to grow? So the one of the things that I appreciate most about the tool is we're not sentenced to a life of being a certain type in a certain way. The Enneagram gives us a map to understand how do we balance how we engage in the world. And from there, we can often explore the interpersonal, how the 9 types communicate differently, how they like to give and receive feedback, how the different energies interact with each other to create stress and conflict, and then how knowing that helps us resolve tension before it gets out of hand, or how it helps us navigate it when we're in the throes of conflict. Couples can use the Enneagram report to better understand their relationship dynamics and depersonalize some of the challenges that come up. And in the working world, we can leverage it and work with leaders to help them practice adaptive leadership, to understand who's in the room, who's on their team, and how to engage with them and communicate with them to invite more psychological safety, more depth in relationship, more vulnerability, which ultimately helps with team cohesion and performance. And then there's a whole spiritual side of it that we won't even get into, but the Enneagram can go really deep.
So with that, just want to honor our time here together and close out with, I know that was a huge amount of information in a very short amount of time, but we wanted to offer this discovery webinar to celebrate World Enneagram Day, which is coming up on this Saturday. And if you're interested in taking a step further, we are offering a special Enneagram personal discovery package in celebration of World Enneagram Day, which includes the deeper dive assessment, a live debrief and coaching session with either Jason or myself, and then a more rich and thorough introductory workshop. So for those of you who want to explore that further, We also will have some opportunities for some other workshops later this summer. Jake's going to put in the chat the link to the other package. It is available through May 31st. We're offering a 50% discount. And because you came to today's session registered, we're actually giving a special additional 10% promo code. So that package will be $225, which is a great way to engage in this further. All of this information will come to you in email after today's session. So you'll get that in your chat box, in your inbox later today. And you can also look at the webpage on Vista Global's website, which is vistaglobal.com/Enneagram. We are thrilled that you joined us today to learn a little bit more about the Enneagram and how it can support you personally and professionally. We hope to continue this journey with you together. Thanks so much, folks, for joining us today. Appreciate it.